Good afternoon, everyone. If you could please find a seat, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Jordan Keel, and I currently have the honor and pleasure of serving as the student body president for this year. Thank you. I also have the honor today of welcoming everyone to our second KSU night. So for students, faculty, staff, administration, and community members who are here, welcome as we come again once again together. I'd also like to recognize any elected or city officials that are here today. If you would please stand as an important member of our campus and community. Thank you. Last year was a historic event, the first ever KSU night, that marked Kansas State University's commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity across campus. That being said, while progress has been made, there's always still more that can be done. Today, to begin, I would like to share a quote that I feel encapsulates why we're here today, why we're all here together. Our uniqueness, our individuality, and our life experiences molds us into fascinating beings. I hope we can embrace that. I pray we may all challenge ourselves to delve into the deepest recesses of our hearts, to cultivate an atmosphere of understanding, tolerance, and compassion. We are all in this life together. Please remember this today as you participate in discussions, as you listen to student stories, and tomorrow and the days following as you walk around campus and interact with fellow members of the campus and Manhattan community. With that, I'd like to introduce a K-State alum that continues to be dedicated to our university and is currently serving as the 14th Kansas State University President, President Richard B. Myers.
Yeah, give it up for Jordan Keel, our student body president, my partner, and thank you, Jordan. So you're not afraid, you're not out there building an ark right now. It was pretty intense right before we all came in. Thank you all for being here, and a very warm welcome to everybody, student, faculty, staff, alumni, friends, community members, and elected officials. We've got the whole community here today, or at least represented, and we appreciate that. And remember, there are about 3,500 or 3,600 folks that weren't on campus last year that don't know a lot about what we did last year or what we're talking about. Hopefully, they'll get a sense of where we're going to head. And that's all from last year, but we've got a lot of new folks on campus, so to all the new people, we got to be the mentors. I am proud to stand before you as we reaffirm our commitment to stand in unity, not only as a university, but as a community. Last November, racial tensions and unrest dividing many campuses across the nation, K-State University established a precedent, as Jordan said, with the first KSU Night event held on the lawn of Anderson Hall. We canceled classes so everyone would have an opportunity to participate. And boy, did you participate. Watching people gather in front of Anderson Hall brought tears to my eyes as I peeked through the window shades in the office. It was very emotional to see everybody heading to Anderson and the unity that spoke. Today we're here under somewhat different circumstances, but our goals are exactly the same. During those troubling times, the K-State family chose to unite and validate a long-standing university pledge, a pledge focused on shared values and a dedication to foster an inclusive and welcoming atmosphere where everyone is valued and where everyone can share and learn from one another. And we, all of you, changed the dialogue at that time last year. We changed the dialogue. You helped define who we are and who we want to be. You defined the future of K-State. And that's been worked on for many years, but last year I think was a defining moment in telling the world who is it we want to become. We stand for unity that embraces our differences in thought, ideas, backgrounds, and makes us strong and resilient as a family, as a university, and as a community. Mary Parker Follett, born in Massachusetts in 1868, just after the Morrill Act, and an American social worker and visionary in the field of human relations, democratic organizations, and management, once said, "Unity, not uniformity, must be our aim. We attain unity only through variety. Differences must be integrated, not annihilated, not absorbed." As a visionary in human relations, her philosophies included seeking win-win solutions, community-based governance, strength in diversity, and situational leadership. She had a vision for sound philosophies that have held the test of time for well more than over a century. As she suggested, unity does not mean we must think alike or do everything according to one ideal. Rather, unity suggests we should respect and leverage our variety of thoughts, ideas, and beliefs, and integrate our differences to make us all better and stronger. In our K-State Principles of Community, we affirm the right of each person to freely express thoughts and opinions in the spirit of civility and decency. We believe that diversity of views enriches our learning environment, and we promote open expression within a climate of courtesy, sensitivity, and mutual respect. We also acknowledge that we are part of multiple communities, and we have an obligation to be engaged in a positive way with all our civic partners. Diversity and inclusion has been and will continue to be a top priority at Kansas State University. We made 2 organizational changes last year that speak to that commitment. We named Dr. Bryan Samuel, sitting up here on stage, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, reporting directly to the President. And we named Adrian Rodriguez, who's sitting over here in the front row. Last time I looked, and he hasn't moved. With all his energy, you never know where he's going to be. As Associate Vice President for Student Life of Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs, reporting to Dr. Pat Bosco here in the front row, our Dean of Students. Although Bryan and Adrian have been here less than a year, they are making tremendous strides in developing programs and training to increase awareness of and the importance of and the value of accepting and including diversity of ideas, thoughts, ethnicity, and multiple cultures into our lives. Their work is further amplifying and enhancing programs and teaching already in place at Kansas State for many years. Last fall during the KS Unite event, we committed that the Multicultural Student Center project would be a priority for the years ahead and task a university-wide team to turn ideas and thoughts into action. This was an important project for many, and certainly for me personally. The Multicultural Student Center Project Action Team, a 28-member team of students, faculty, staff, alumni, KSU Foundation, and community representatives, provided recommendations to the President's Cabinet on the facility's use, location, and design. That, of course, was approved. It was great work. Last week, in less than a year from last year's KSU Unite event, we announced the university had secured more than $2.7 million for the Multicultural Center and was moving forward with the project. So we're moving forward. Today, I'm very pleased, extremely pleased to announce that we recently received another lead gift of $1.5 million from an alum, bringing the fundraising progress for the Multicultural Student Center to more than $4.2 million. And the Homecoming Committee elected to donate proceeds from this year's 5K philanthropy race and walk to the Multicultural Student Center project. These gifts from generous and supportive alumni, students, and corporation represent a substantial step in advancing student success, diversity, inclusion, and social justice here at K-State. The proposed 14,300 square foot facility will be located adjacent to the east side of this union. For those that are geographically challenged, it's that way. You'll see the open space there that'll be made a lot more beautiful by this facility. The action team has been and will continue to work under the guidance of Albert Ray II, a 1993 K-State graduate in architecture, planning, and design, and an employee at Hollis Miller Architects in Kansas City. It's fitting, I think, that an alumnus who knows this university well and has a deep appreciation for diversity is providing valuable expertise in planning this center. The project action team's recommendations for the center include a welcome area, gathering, meeting, and performance space, student and multicultural student organizational group spaces, a kitchen, office space, and core support space. The university will present this project for approval to the Kansas Board of Regents this November, next month at the next meeting. Preliminary designs and specifications are expected in January of 2019. Adrian, I'd like to call you out and recognize you and thank you and members of the project team for moving this important initiative forward. It wouldn't have happened without those 28 members and particularly your leadership. We appreciate this. This will be a place where all people can unite for Kansas State University. And following the program here, I think at 3 p.m., we're going to meet in Forum Hall downstairs, and there'll be a time for more detail and to answer questions about the Multicultural Student Center. So if you're interested, come on down to Forum Hall. We'll see you there. Last month, Insight into Diversity magazine awarded K-State with the 2018 Higher Education Excellence in Diversity Award, also known as the HEED Award. K-State has received that award 5 consecutive years. We are one of 96 higher education institutions to receive this national honor and the only Kansas institution to receive this designation this year. Thank you for that award because it reflects all of us and importantly those who have tried to move us forward. Thank you so much for your efforts there. This award and others are testament to your ongoing efforts in uniting our K-State community. Our goal is to graduate world-ready students who understand the power of inclusion and unity. Of course, that takes the work and dedication and acceptance by all of us, students, faculty, staff, to make that happen. I believe we deserve to give all of you, all of us, another round of applause for the work that's gone on this past year. Our support and values for unity go beyond our campus walls, as I mentioned earlier, and into our local communities, whether it be in Manhattan, Kansas City, Salina, or the many locations, the 105 counties where we have research and extension facilities and people. Princeton Review's annual survey for 2019, which came out in August, ranks Kansas State University number 3 for great town-gown relations and number 4 for best quality of life. That speaks to our community, and it speaks to the way people think about our community. Nearly 140,000 students nationally responded to this national survey. And K-State students have consistently ranked K-State in the community high in these categories for the past several years. As part of the student comments collected by the Princeton Review, students said, "Community is extremely important at K-State, and that K-Staters are down-to-earth and family-oriented. They consider success in college a very important aspect in their lives." You can't get better comments than that. You all, we all, each one of us, are touching lives in a very important and impactful way. We work openly and regularly with our many partners to help make our local communities safe and welcoming, while offering a quality of life for everyone to enjoy, whether you're here temporarily, 4, 5, 6, 7 years as a student. Well, you may be going for a PhD, 8, 9, 10. All I want to say is I'm just really proud of the work you do and the leadership that you've all shown to change the dialogue here at Kansas State University and in our communities, and to support the diversity and inclusion. It's important for all of us. It doesn't work if it's just here on campus. It has to work in the community, and it is working. As Jordan said, are we perfect in what we do? And the answer is an absolute no. But K-State has a legacy of being a friendly, family, community-oriented university, and we're not afraid to address the challenges we face and tackle areas where we need to improve. We will continue to step up and listen to all sides of the issues and concerns, listen to all voices, and do what is fair and helps bring unity to our campuses and communities. Thank you for your support and your efforts to help make everyone feel welcome and a member of the K-State family. And most importantly, through your actions to define who we are and who we want to be. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the next introducer, who's going to introduce Dr. Samuel, I believe. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to KS Unite. My name is Paloma Roman, and I'm a K-State student. I'm a senior in athletic training from Garden City. But I just want to say I'm proud to stand. Oh, that is not me. I just want to talk about during my time at K-State, I've been lucky to be a part of many organizations. I've met many students, faculty, and staff. Some of the things that have made a lasting impact were being involved in orientation enrollment as a Wildcat warm-up counselor, running for student body president and senate for Student Governing Association, being part of the multicultural community, but more specifically, finding my passion for students and diversity. The biggest influence in finding my passion was being able to be a part of the Department of Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs. Throughout my years as a student staff assistant, I realized that K-State needed to develop their work in diversity and inclusion. Amidst the campus climate, there was a critical need for more to be done at K-State when it came to diversity. It was time to stop reacting to unfortunate events and start preventing and moving the needle forward to become a more inclusive campus. Only a couple years back was it acknowledged that a presidential cabinet position was needed for diversity. K-State announced a new Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer that would sit on the President's cabinet, Dr. Bryan Samuel. Dr. Bryan Samuel came to us from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga as Chief Diversity Officer last spring. He's worked in multicultural and diverse affairs from Miami to Nebraska. He has served as Director of Multicultural Affairs and Affirmative Action Program, Executive Assistant to the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, and was an Equity and Opportunity Presidential Fellow. He has also received several awards for his work in higher education, including but not limited to the University of Tennessee Chattanooga Student Support Service Outstanding Contributions Award, the Kappa Leadership League Scholarship Debonair Service Award, the University of Tennessee Chattanooga Horace Traylor Diversity Leadership Award, the Southeastern Association of Educational Opportunity Program Personal Trio Achiever Award, and the Noel Levitz Retention Excellence Award. He has led Kansas State University in facilitating best practices and resources that will continue to strengthen the university's culture of inclusion. With the direction of Dr. Bryan Samuel, we are excited to celebrate once again KS Unite. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Bryan Samuel.
Thank you, Paloma. First, I want to take a little privilege real quick. Paloma mentioned my leadership in bringing this program together, but things like this don't happen with one individual. It took a team, a family, and a community effort. We had an overarching group of about 20 faculty, staff, and administrators that began planning it, and then we had our working teams, 5 or 6 different working teams, and of course the presenters and all of you. So if you were on that overarching committee, if you were on that subcommittee or one of the sub teams that kind of helped put this together, or if you were a presenter, would you please stand so we can give you a round of applause? Thank you. And then finally, I want to say to Mr. Corey Williamson and the team here at the Kansas State Student Union, what an outstanding job they did. They got the call maybe yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon that we were going away from Memorial Stadium and bringing everything to the K-State Student Union, and looked like it's been playing for this for a long time, and we know that takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication, and we want to thank all of you for everything that you've done here in the Student Union. As I say good afternoon, I want to begin by recognizing that K-State University is on the lands of the Kaw people and that the state of Kansas occupies the ancestral lands of the Osage, the Pawnee, and many other tribes who use the Great Plains of western Kansas as their hunting grounds. During the era of removal, many more tribal nations were forcibly moved through Kansas and at one point called Kansas home. Kansas is the current home for 4 federally recognized indigenous nations: the Kickapoo, the Iowa, the Prairie Band, the Potawatomi, and the Sauk and Fox. And during the past year, K-State has worked to continue our commitment to diversity and inclusion, the cornerstone of this great university. From the beginning, since 1863, our doors have been open to all students without regard to race, gender, or creed. K-State's first graduating class, in fact, of 52 students included 26 women and 26 men. In keeping with our mission, values, legacies, and principles of community, we continue to employ efforts that demonstrate our commitment to diversity. Like many institutions of higher education across the country, K-State has challenges, including numerous opportunities for continued growth and improvement. However, we remain steadfast in our commitment to our students, our alumni, our state, our donors, our partners who employ our graduates. We understand that a degree from Kansas State means that students have not only demonstrated sufficiency or mastery of a particular field, but more important, they are wildcats, which means they have learned the importance of working well and meaningfully with others whose backgrounds, ways of being, and walks of life may be very different from their own. As graduates of K-State, they have been provided numerous opportunities in the classroom, in activities and programming, in intramurals, in fraternity and sorority life, in residence halls, in study abroad, in CAT communities, in service learning, and other initiatives that prepare them for global citizenry. Recent data indicates K-State has marked improvement in the retention and graduation of underrepresented groups. I intend to share these data during a State of Diversity address sometime in the spring 2019 semester, wherein I will provide additional information about diversity and inclusion strategies and initiatives on the horizon here at K-State. While it is true that we are improving on many fronts, we cannot and must not be satisfied. We must work to be first amongst our peers in the retention and graduation of all students. We must think about diversity comprehensively with consideration for all students, faculty, and staff, and guests of the university. In order to achieve and sustain a climate characterized by pride, civility, and mutual respect for others, we must approach our challenges systemically and strategically. This will require at a minimum that all of us, students, faculty, staff, alumni, partners, and donors who call this community home, to willingly and meaningfully engage one another on the many facets of the diversity continuum, including but not limited to race, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, immigration, socioeconomic status, religion, the intersectionality of identities, and all other voices of our population. Beyond KS Unite, our campus leaders must address all student concern regarding indigenous nations, xenophobia, racism and inequality, social justice, and numerous other issues of the diversity continuum by devising transparent action plans. At a minimum, these action plans must include the review of institutional policies and practices which affect our campus climate and revise if there are any limitations on our ability to be inclusive. As Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, I would be an advocate for diversity and inclusion on campus, in the community, as well as across our state, our region, and the nation. Moreover, I call on all of us, our campus leaders, students, faculty, staff, and administrators, to serve as advocates for all students and emphasize leadership practices that demonstrate the value of listening to diverse perspectives and amplifying the voices of the marginalized. In this regard, we must ensure that there are opportunities and appropriate resources for accomplishment of our diversity and inclusion and goals. Some areas of emphasis may include supporting student organization expanding programming, diversity programming across the continuum, and professional development for faculty, staff, and students. Together, we will work to increase the representation and inclusion of diversity and underrepresented students, faculty, and staff across the campus community. In partnership with the President's Cabinet, Human Capital Services, Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs, the President's Commission on Multicultural Affairs, our provosts, our deans, our faculty senate, and various other campus entities. As CDIO, I will work to assess as well as enhance diversity and cultural competency educational opportunities so that our faculty, staff, and students can increase their respective cultural competencies. This may include reviewing and or further augmenting our curricular in order to include diverse perspective in particular areas of study. But more important, ensuring that all students continue to graduate and complete their degree with one or more courses around the diversity and inclusion and graduate with an enhanced awareness of self, society, and social justice matters. Recently, President Myers and I attended the Change in the National Conversation on the Inclusion and Equity Conference at the University of Pennsylvania. And during this conference, we were able to meet and engage with Dr. Shirley Tillman, President Emeriti at Princeton University, who characterized diversity as a tool, a resource, and a priority for higher education. And she defined the best education as follows. The best education is first and foremost one that transmits knowledge and understanding while opening the minds to other points of view. It prompts a critical reassessment of long-held beliefs, but it also provides a second benefit, where Justice O'Connor highlighted in the 2003 decision regarding Grutter versus Bollinger, also known as the Michigan decisions. Diversity fosters empathy toward the other, an appreciation of those least like oneself. It is rooted in a respect for differences and a recognition of commonalities. And this can only happen in a fully diverse environment. When black students sit down for lunch with white, when straight and gay rub shoulders on the same athletic team, and when Christian, Muslim, Jew, and atheists probe each other's views in class on the nature of religious beliefs. And when the privileged and the disadvantaged find themselves as roommates and learn to see the world through one another's eyes. Thank you so much. It's been my privilege to speak with you today.
Welcome, members of the K-State family. My name is Ryan Kelly, and I'm a junior here at K-State, majoring in communication studies. Along with several other students on the stage with me this afternoon, I also serve in the Student Governing Association, where I'm the Speaker of the Student Senate. I've been fortunate during my college experience up to this point to interact and collaborate with student leaders from all walks of life. I would be remiss to leave the contributions of my fellow students and friends at K-State Polytechnic University unacknowledged. We all take this day to reflect on where we've been, where we are, and how together we will move this university forward. Topically, we were all very different, but we unite in our shared vision to make this university a better place for all members of the K-State family. These students are just like you and I. They go to class, they try their hardest to excel in the classroom, and they hang out with friends after hours. In addition to the responsibilities of being a student, they go out of their way to push for change. Progress that paves the way for the next generation of K-State students. I have the honor this afternoon to introduce 4 student leaders who are committed to this pursuit. Vedant Kulkarni is a sophomore from Nasik, India. Adam Carr is a senior from Buckland, Kansas. Jordan Payton is a junior from Fort Worth, Texas. And Caitlin Cherry is a graduated K-State student born in Virginia and raised throughout parts of Tennessee. I invite you all to listen attentively to the experiences that these students have had at K-State, to recognize the courage it takes to voice a story so personal to an audience so large, and to pay close attention to what you can do to truly unite this campus. Please join me in welcoming Vedant, Adam, Jordan, and Caitlin.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ryan, for the sweet introduction. And thank you, the organizing committee of KS Unite, for having me and giving me this opportunity to speak here today. And thank you, my dear K-State family, for being here today to show your promise towards diversity of K-State. Tumse khoob khoob aabhar. Thank you very much. I'm regularly asked one question: why K-State? To answer this, I will tell you the story of my journey towards achieving the goal of studying abroad. Till I was in high school, I had no idea of the existence of a concept called study abroad. When I found out that I could study for I could have my higher studies in this magical place, the United States of America, I was thrilled. I said to myself, Vedant, you have to do this. While the initial reaction of my family was a straight rejection, I was able to convince them to send me abroad for my higher education. It took me an year, but my perseverance was a success, and I was able to convince them to send me here. While searching for universities one midnight, I came across the name Kansas State University. As I read about K-State and the Manhattan community and the embracing aura of all Wildcats, my interest in attending this university began rising. The next morning, I put K-State as my top choice in the universities I want to attend. And I was so happy when I got that email which said, congratulations, Vedandeepak Kulkarni, you have been admitted to K-State. I remember the day when I left India. I was super excited. When I landed here, I could feel my journey beginning. I was breathing the American oxygen. However, then came the hard parts. The first difficulty I came across was my very first day. I had landed in Manhattan in the evening. While I had flown with one of my friends, I was all alone in my dorms. We were in different dorms. I had no one to help me with my luggage. I had no idea of any restaurant or a coffee place where I could have dinner, as dinner at Derby was over. In the end, I had chips for my dinner that I bought at the convenience store in Moore Hall. The next day was the first day of orientation. I had never been that anxious in my entire life. I had no idea of whom I will meet at the orientation. But as I walked into the orientation hall, all I could see was people like me who had same stories, who had same struggles. The only difference between them and me was the country we were born in. Sorry. I made friends on that day from all around the world, from Pakistan to Paraguay, from Japan to Iran, from everywhere. Some people came from a happy family background, while some people had to have really hard struggles to be here. The second difficult part that I experienced would have to be the scariest part of my life, the first day of classes. There I was, in a whole different continent, having no idea of how a class is conducted over here. When I entered the classroom, all I could see was that it was filled up with local American students who were in their friend circles talking with each other about how they have been together since childhood. I quietly grabbed a seat and sat down. Everyone around me were talking with each other, and I was too nervous to start a conversation with anyone. That day changed me. I ended up spending more time with other international students, predominantly Indian students. However, something about that didn't quite feel right. I knew I was not getting the exposure and the experience for which I had traveled 10,000 miles. I knew I had to change myself. When I first heard about Student Governing Association, I thought it was something that was exclusive only to American students. I never knew that international students could be a part of it. When I found out that I could be a part of student government and have a voice, I was thrilled. To be the voice that speaks on behalf of individuals who feel they have been left unnoticed all these years, I knew I had to do it. And I did it. I got into student government, and here I stand today speaking in front of all of you guys. And my story is just one part of a larger international community in which every international student has a unique story of his, her, or their own. But the struggle we face resembles. And don't get me wrong, I'm not here to talk only about myself. As Malala Yousafzai said, I speak not for myself, but for those without a voice, those who have fought for their right to live in peace, their right to be treated with dignity, their right to equal opportunity, and their right to be educated. I have had a wonderful experience here at K-State. I have made many friends, many local friends, and international friends. I'm proud to be standing here today. I know that in no other place other than Kansas State University is my story even possible. Kansas State gave me an opportunity to dream big. That opportunity gave me and many more international students like me a hope that we can live a different life, a hope to pursue our individual dreams while still be treated as one Wildcat family, a hope for international students to set out for distant continent, a hope for Deepak Kulkarni and Vaishali Kulkarni who believe that their skinny kid with a funny name will be treated equally and accommodated halfway across the world. And as former President of the United States, Barack Obama said, it was a hope for us in the face of difficulty, a hope for us in the face of uncertainty, and that is the audacity of our hope. In conclusion, I would like to leave you all with a challenge. The challenge is that today, this week, this month, this semester, this year, or any time at your life at K-State, make friendship with an international student. Be best friends with them. Invite them to celebrate your festivals. Attend their celebrations of festival. Have a lively cultural exchange without even a remote hint of appropriation. Understand each other's problems. Stand by each other as each other's voices. I believe by doing this, we can make Kansas State University the most inclusive university in the United States. As the phrase goes, so powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. Thank you very much.
Okay, honestly don't know how I'm going to follow that one. So before I begin, I must pause to give recognition to those who paved the way for me and my community to speak and shine the light on our collective stories. Individuals such as Marsha P. Johnson, Harvey Milk, Sylvia Rivera, Audre Lorde, Banner Dresden, and so many more who gave so much of themselves to speak out against pains in our community. They each saw the importance of activism, intersectionality, while keeping mine and your freedoms in sight. I give them thanks for that work, and I hope to contribute in some way to honor those legacies. As Ryan said, my name is Adam Carr, and I was invited here to speak at KS Unite from my heart about my experiences, specifically regarding my queer identity. My hope is that these words will serve as a way to connect with all of you and to start our dialogues of friendship. So my experience at this institution has been, if not more than, a dream come true in so many ways. I've been able to create friendships I'll cherish forever, work alongside brilliant individuals who've taught me so much about the world that I could never have done on my own, and had opportunities presented to me that my wildest imaginations couldn't have conceived, today included. While I will hold these times dear to my heart, I cannot expunge from my memory the pains that have come along for that ride. Today, I've been asked to stand here to represent the LGBTQ community for which I identify in. My sexuality, as it has been felt, seen, and perceived by others, has been one of the largest driving forces that has shaped my experience here. From instances of overhearing crude and harmful remarks by my peers, needing to come to the aid of friends who've been physically attacked, to watching the actions, or more so inaction, of those who can make change. These experiences have opened my eyes to the dire needs for our society. I say these things not in spite or to place blame, but instead to shine light on those raw and painful realities of my existence. I speak these truths also to give power to those who have walked the same path and never felt heard. To my queer community and all who have been minoritized and minimized in this world, I hear you, I see you, and I believe you. I see our community as having pieces from all of us. Queer, people of color, social classes, ethnicities, religions, and more. In our intentional inclusion of all of our identities, we show that we do not live by single issues, as Audre Lorde once said. These experiences of struggle are ones that I share with you. I know the days grow long and that we're tired. I'm tired. I'm tired of being tokenized by my identity, constantly asked to perform the oppression to teach others. We're tired of giving our input about the services we need and having it dismissed. And tired of not feeling included when we talk about the K-State family. This physical and emotional and mental labor we have to endure is pressure unlike any other. But I know that you are not alone. I want you all to know I am here for you, and I know what you and people that are here today are here to support yourselves and the community around you. Keep pushing and moving forward. Your actions and words give light to those who don't have the ability to speak. I have an inbox full of messages that I've saved over the last 4 years from students and parents who are just thankful that the Resource Center, other access groups, and organizations are here on campus that their students can identify with. Many times our work can seem like it goes unnoticed, but I assure you that I and those who have needed it see the work you're doing. I wouldn't be here today without the support of all of you, and I'm beyond thankful. To my university, administration, and those with titled positions, please do better with more intention and transparency. Our world is going through a revolution led by our generation, and I want K-State to be a part of that change. Our world is changing so much that gone are the days of accepting minimal effort, support, or recognition, and gone are the days of tolerating intolerance. President Myers asked us last year to think of our hopes for our campus, and I'd like to share mine with you now. As a university, I hope to see a future where the students have a place to call their own in order to share experiences, educate our campus, and come together at intersections of our identity. I hope to see the future where dollars are spent on scholarships that attract, but more importantly, retain students who seek to receive a higher education. I also hope that education offered becomes more intentional in its scope to cover the truths of my community and others in its curriculum and provides the tools necessary for that education. I hope to see a campus who brings our principles of community back to the forefront of our values and gives power back to the students whose voices need to be heard. And most importantly, I hope to see a future where students, just like me, feel noticed. Last year, our university came together under the guise of our K-State family to affirm our beliefs in diversity, inclusion, and equity for all. In an astounding move, we made a strong statement against those in this world who sought to promote hate in its deepest forms. I ask that all of you take this moment to reflect on the past year and to reflect on today. We started to move the needle in the right direction, but our words need actions. It is only when we work together that our words can have meaning. I say this in full recognition that I am a part of the words and promises being spoken today, but I assure you that I am dedicated to being a part of those change. I want to challenge you all to do 3 things. 1, educate yourself. We live in the most informed society that we've ever seen, yet we are quick to dismiss fact and personal accounts. Please do your work to find literature, organizations, clubs, events, and simple websites to become more informed as a public. 2, listen to understand, not to respond. Take time to listen to the stories and experiences of those around you to connect with their true meaning. You can learn a lot more when you listen empathetically than in defense. Finally, 3, embrace discomfort. This work we are embarking on isn't easy. Take those steps to move from your comfort zones and embrace the difficulties head on. It is at those most difficult and trying times where we find the true action of change. I want to thank you all for allowing me to share my voice with you today. I'm grateful for this opportunity and beyond humbled at this experience. I look forward to working alongside each and every one of you to find and to make that future we desire a reality.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, so my name is Jordan. My journey to K-State was on a completely random chance, but it was exactly where I needed to be. K-State for me has been a place to challenge myself to grow as a person, as a leader, and to discover my identity. Briefly, I would like to share my story as to how I came to be a champion of finding your voice. When I was a small child, I always knew I was adopted because both of my parents are Caucasian and I am Asian. So obviously, two Caucasians don't make an Asian. It's simple math. Throughout my upbringing, I was loved and cared for, but my parents could only provide me with an outside looking in perspective when it came to my Asian cultural background. When I was in kindergarten, I had a Vietnamese friend. Whenever it was time for our parents to pick us up, the teacher would always lead the both of us to her parents' car. She assumed we were related because we looked alike. It was really awkward when my Caucasian parents behind her would say, "Hey, that's my kid." When I was in elementary school and it was Bring Your Parents to School Day, everyone wanted to learn about my culture, my language, but all I could say was, "I'm adopted." They just assumed that because I was Asian, that I grew up in an Asian household. But in reality, I was not familiar or even connected to my Asian background at home, and I loved stereotypical American food, like meatloaf, and I still like meatloaf, just saying. In middle school, all the kids would try to cheat off me because of the model minority myth. My classmates just assumed I was smart because of the way I looked. Joke's on them because I wasn't good at math. Whenever we got our scores back, I was always greeted with the "aren't you supposed to be smart because you're Asian" comment. In high school, there were international Asian students, and they would always try to talk to me in their language, in what was supposed to be our language. But all I could do was shake my head, ashamed that I left my culture behind. Before I came to K-State, I narrowly identified myself as just an adopted Chinese kid who wanted to fit in without fitting into a stereotype. I definitely didn't know what it meant to be an Asian American. I thought you had to choose. You were either Asian or you were American. For a long time, I forgot what it meant to be Asian. I lost myself in my American identity. I didn't realize the two could coexist until I met former Asian American Student Union President Jackie Nguyen and other members of the K-State Asian American community. This community taught me to fully embrace my Asian culture, did not make me feel ashamed for not knowing, embraced me for who I am, and exposed me to other APIA organizations like the Midwestern Asian American Students Union. Getting involved with ASU, MASU, and even getting involved in the Midwest APIA communities, I have developed and strengthened my confidence in various identities, and it has helped me grow as a leader, which is one of the reasons why I became the president of the Asian American Student Union. Throughout my experience in getting rid of the shame, I hope that I can help other students realize that they can fully experience and embrace all of their intersecting identities. It is important for us all to know that there are multiple characteristics that make us who we are, and we all deserve to grow and learn in all of them. Through my personal journey of learning who I am, I have made a commitment to be open to help, guide, and assist students as they too embark on their journey of finding their voice. I still have a lot of growing left to do. If you all haven't noticed, I'm pretty short, so growing tall wouldn't hurt either. I hope we can unite and grow together. Thank you.
You know, had you told my 18, 19-year-old self that I would be standing here today in 2018, I'd have laughed in your face and said, Kansas, I forgot that state existed. As Ryan introduced, I was born in Virginia and raised across Tennessee. I legitimately forgot about Kansas until I applied for a job that brought me here. And people laugh when I tell them, no, I really did, I forgot. I learned about it, but it just kind of went in the back caverns. And so when I moved here, I literally know no one except my service dog. That was an experience. Now, to go back into the 2008, 2009, and so on, I have a story. It kind of leads up to the what am I doing here moment. I tried college. I say tried very tentatively because I had a crappy experience the first time. It was in Tennessee, and I went one semester and then vowed never to return because I had the worst experiences. The disability service office was less than helpful. I would ask them for a textbook in a particular format, and they gave me something completely opposite of what I asked for. I asked for assistance to classes because I had not been oriented or shown how to travel to classes from my dorm. And at one point, one of the administration of said office decided that I was going to show her how to get to my class that day. Now explain that one to me. I still can't, and that's been almost 10 years ago. But moving forward to I'm now graduated from K-State. I was brought here for a job. I later left, but I had already taken the plunge because I was bored. So here, little old me, I don't want to go back to school. I really don't want homework. I really don't want to sit in the classroom. And there I was, walking in October 2014 to an Intro to American Ethnic Studies course. Didn't know a soul. That was fun. So I identify a lot with some of the stories already presented here today because it can be very disorienting if you feel like you're the one that stands out the most. But I had an extraordinary experience when I contacted K-State Student Access Center. They discussed with me what accommodations I may need. They stayed on top of the ball the entire time of my K-State career and were completely phenomenal. If I needed assistance finding a classroom before I switched to strictly online, I had a representative that was willing and happy to come and assist me. I had professors that went out of their way to make sure that I had the assignments I needed on time. Sadly, those professors were not as many as I would have liked. There were only about 2. And I believe that that kind of goes back to the embracing diversity and inclusion theme. Frequently when people hear the word diversity, they think international, they think religion, they think LGBTQ, and so on. And then you have the rest of us who are identified as or identify as disabled. And that's the big scary D word. So I feel like moving forward, K-State has made a lot of improvements just from my last year, which was my senior year, compared to my first year. But I feel like there are still improvements to be made. And just as with anything, it takes a group. It takes group effort, and it takes determination from all, not just one section of the community. You know, most great novels, they have a beginning, they have a middle, they have an end. In our case, I feel like K-State is starting to write and rewrite their own novel, only it's probably more akin to the never-ending story more than one that has an end. And I just want to leave you with this today, that this is only the start. And it'll take all of us to continue forward and continue those chapters and keep that story from ending. Thank you.
Hi. Okay. My name is Ayana Belk. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a second year studying landscape architecture. I'm also a senator and caucus leader in our student governing association, and I represent the National Organization for Minority Architect Students on the the Multicultural Student Center Project Action Team. I first met Dr. Franklin my senior year of high school when I came to K-State for the Edgerly Franklin Scholarship interview session. That day, I was so nervous about my interview, I cried in the middle of the whole thing. Dr. Franklin asked me why I was crying and immediately assured me that everything will be fine. He told my mom later that same day that I was going to do big things. Ever since, I've been blessed to be in Dr. Franklin's presence. I've been on a constant growing streak. Being near someone so determined to create a peaceful and equitable environment is amazing, to say the least. Dr. Franklin has been a huge advocate for needs-based scholarships, student involvement, diversity, and inclusion. He has been a mentor to many people and students on campus, as long as a role model to many others throughout his lifetime. Now that Dr. Franklin has moved on to share his gifts with Mount St. Mary University as Vice President for Student Life, all I can do is stay involved on campus and make sure the legacy he started here never dies. Please welcome Dr. Bernard Franklin.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I should just sit down. You've had good messages. What more can I say, honestly? I'm honored to be here, honored to be back at home. Can I say that? Thank you, thank you. I'm glad to be home. Mr. President, you're incredible. And folks don't know that you made a commitment to see the Multicultural Center through. And you said you wouldn't leave until you had at least that building started. So I'm proud that you're keeping and holding on to that commitment. I'm really proud of your work. Really, to all the students, I should sit down. What more can I say? You have said it. You said it better than I can say it. Just extraordinary. Paloma and Michael, I'm here because of you two. You two made it known that you wanted me back, and so I cleared my calendar to make sure I could make this happen. So thank you all. Let me tell you a story, because we all have stories, right? There was a young boy named Anthony. Anthony dreamed about a little sister. And Anthony and his father would pray every night, and Anthony would close the prayer with, "God bless me with a little sister." Anthony prayed this for weeks, literally prayed it for months. At the end of a period, he quit praying it. And about 6 months later, Dad took him and said, "Let's go visit your mom in the hospital." They went to the hospital room. Dad pulled down the covers of Mom's bed, and Dad said, "Anthony, I want to introduce you to your little sister." Now, Anthony was beside himself. He was just ecstatic because Anthony's dream, Anthony's prayer had come true. After Anthony calmed down just a little bit, Dad took his hands and walked him on the other side of the bed. Dad pulled the covers down just a little bit and said, Anthony, I want to introduce you to your second little sister. Now, there was more excitement in that room than there is right now, and I get it. I'm here, and you're like, is he going to finish? He was so excited, nurses came running down the hall just to see what was going on. When things quieted down, Dad took his hand, walked him back to the original side of the bed, pulled the covers down just a little bit more, and said, son, aren't you glad you have your third little sister? Pandemonium. Bruh swinging from the roof, the lights. I mean, he's running up and down the hallway. Well, Dad being a dad, like some of us, like me, I have 3 sons. Dad crossed his arms and Dad said, son, aren't you glad you prayed for little sister? But sometimes students are smarter than the father. Anthony looked up at his father and said, yes, Dad, I'm glad I prayed. But aren't you glad I stopped? Friends, this work can't stop. This work can't stop. My dream, my story was not Anthony's. My dream was to be President of the United States. You see, I was born to cotton pickers in central rural Oklahoma. My parents were sharecroppers. They picked cotton on landowners' farm. And I was born in that squalor. Students today talk about free and reduced lunch. And yes, America has done great things in reducing poverty, allowing students of all backgrounds to have a free and reduced lunch. But friends, we scavenged for our food. And we took scraps from the landowners as food. There was no running water. And in the summer, there was no place to sleep. There was no such thing as central air. We slept outside. I remember taking baths once a week. Long metal container filled up with water, and my mom's brothers and sisters and grandparents would take their bath, and I would take mine last. You can just imagine what the water was like by the time I got in. That was my beginning. That was where I was formed. It's where I was shaped. My dad then decided to move to Wichita. At that time, Wichita was the air capital of the world. Boeing, Beech, Cessna, Learjet was there. And poor people from rural Oklahoma, Mississippi, Arkansas migrated to Wichita to work in the aircraft industry. My dad didn't get on at Boeing. He ended up working at the post office. My dad sorted mail, the same mundane job, for 27 years. I grew up with an angry father. Sure, carried some of that from the rural, dysfunctional, critically sad, racist culture into the family. Because he didn't know anything about therapy. He didn't know anything about making amends and doing things better. That's all he had. So I grew up in the Wichita public schools, hated high school, but knew since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, I was going to college. Made the decision to apply because Dad said, as the oldest of 7, all of our children are going to stay in state. So I applied at the other university. But in '71, K-State was serious about recruiting students of color. And so Verl Schweitzer came to my house, sat down with my parents, and assured them that this agricultural institution would be a safe place for their son. My parents consented, and I arrived that fall, 1971. It was an eye-opening experience. I grew up in a black church, a black neighborhood, black grocery stores. Literally everything we did, people looked like me. So I arrive in Marlette Hall and have roommates whose parents would walk up to the door with eyes big as a quarter because I was not the roommate of choice for their sons. 2 weeks, I had 3 roommates until a young man from Overland Park decided to stay as my roommate. It was hard here. While K-State had made a choice to recruit kids of color, they had not thought one thing about what that meant culturally and as a community. We were all assigned mentors. And at that period of time, there were not enough mentors, faculty members, and people of color who looked like the African American and Latino students who arrived. So mine was the assistant dean of students, a rather eccentric woman who wore turquoise, rings, necklace. And back in the day when before skirts were long, she wore a skirt. And she was kind of touchy-feely kind of administrator with beanbag chairs in her office for us to sit. So you can just imagine what it was like when I walked into her office and I saw this person waiting for me in kind of that student affairs kind of have a seat there. Who have I just encountered? Where am I? I sat, we talked, but I came back the second time and the third time, and I literally vomited every time I was with her. Oh, not that way. Experientially. I can hear you moaning. Oh. I had never been around people who were so unwelcoming in some ways. My mama didn't take chicken and slice it and put it on white bread and cover it with yellow gravy and call it chicken a la king. My mama took a bird, put it in a sack with some flour, salt and pepper, a little bit of garlic and some Lorry seasoning salt, shake that baby up, put it in some hot grease. That was fried chicken, man. So I came here, I had a whole new recipe that I had to encounter. I go looking for a birthday card from my dad, and he looked like your dad. Why would I send your dad to my dad? And then somebody say, here's a card over here that has a duck on it, like my dad went duck hunting. And Prel shampoo, y'all, back in the day, I had a kick in that fro. I know you can't see it now. I know you can't. It was on my shoulders. But you got to understand, I couldn't use Prel because Prel is some of y'all's shampoo. You need to take oil out. I need to keep oil. And so we were changing all kind of issues. So Dean Caroline Pine said, Bernard, the only way you're going to change K-State is to get involved in K-State. So I think she manipulated the union director and arranged for a freshman to have an interview. In second semester my freshman year, I joined union governing board. And friends, we turned the union upside down. Because I was going to make sure they had some skincare and some hair care products that was going to take care of my people. I was going to make sure there were going to be some cards that looked like my daddy, my mama, my brothers and sisters. And And I was going to make sure every now and then we had some fried chicken. We just had to have it. We just had to. Well, friends, I got real involved here. Life changed for me. I found my voice. I found who I was. I had a man named Lou Douglas who took me to the 1972 Kansas Democratic Convention. And I was selected an alternate delegate to the 1972 Democratic Convention, representing McGovern. Went on, did a lot of things, and some of you know I was selected student body president. Who would have thought in 1975 at Kansas State University an African American would be selected? And friends, I have to say, we're one of the first in America on a predominantly Caucasian campus to remember that students literally, because of student government guidelines, you all, required, I know I was late registering because I was supporting another friend of mine who happens to be sitting on the front row here, and I decided to run late. And so student government said people had to spell my name correctly. They couldn't put Barnyard or Bernie or anything else. They had to spell Bernard, B-E-R-N-A-R-D, and 5,500 students came to the ballot and voted and spelled my name correctly. I left K-State and went to work for AT&T. My first assignment, I was on the TWA account. And I know half of you in this room have never even heard of TWA. Think I'm coming up with some letters. It was an airline, like Southwest Airline, like old crappy whatever, that other one that flies, whatever, I can't even think now. But that was my account. About halfway through my first year, I get a call from Governor Bennett asking me if I would consider an appointment to the Kansas Board of Regents. Friends, I'm 24 years old, and I'm having this conversation with the governor about being appointed to the Kansas Board of Regents. Of course, I accepted. I joined the board, was named or selected chair of the Academic Affairs Committee, meaning that any new program, new academic program came through my committee. I would end up weeks with piles of paper because academic departments at all of the major institutions would create these documents justifying this new program, and this kid had to go through all of that stuff, then make a presentation to the full board about what was acceptable. A year or so into that, my younger brother calls and asks me if I would drive with him to Atlanta, Georgia. My brother defies my dad and says, I'm not staying in state. I want to go to Morehouse College, the premier college for African American men. Dad said, I'm not driving you. Bra calls and asks if I would drive. I drive with him to Atlanta, Georgia. We get to his residence hall room, and on the door is the name Martin Luther King III. Now, I told y'all where I came from. I told you what we ate. I told you I took a bath once a week. I told you we slept outside in the stars. There's no reason Martin Luther King III should be my brother's roommate. There's no reason. So we're outside the door, laughing, talking, having a good time, saying it's a joke. Walk inside, and sure enough, it's Martin III. Martin is warm and gracious, and we talk. My brother and I, we're both like speechless. After a little bit of conversation, Marty turns to me and says, Bernard, where are you staying? And I said, I'm staying at the Omni Hotel downtown. And Marty says, no. Why don't you stay with my mom and my little sister Bernice? Now, I had gotten permission to spend Friday and Monday in Atlanta by my company, AT&T. I quickly called and said, I'm staying a week because I'm staying with Coretta Scott King. Of course, they gave me permission. They wanted to know all about it when I got back, but they gave me permission. Friends, I had an awesome time with this woman. In the midst of our time, America decides to go after a former dictator, Gaddafi. Yes, for the first time. So heads of state are calling Mrs. King to ask her, how do you think Martin would respond against America's aggression against a small country? And I'm watching this dignified woman answer each call. And just with grace, just an incredible moment. In between that, we talk, we have this great conversation. She's a little cautious at first, but after a couple days, she calms down, realizing I'm not going to run to the USA Today or any local paper, that what she's sharing with me is personal. I returned to Kansas City, and a couple of weeks later, I get a call from Mrs. King. Mrs. King asked me if I would travel with her because my brother ended up traveling with Martin III, and I was asked to travel with Mrs. King. This is the kind of trust that was developed out of this. And so I did. And before she finished, she said, remember I told you that I have a relationship with President Carter? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. And she said, well, President Carter wants to appoint some young people to an advisory commission to advise him on issues that affect the poor and the disadvantaged. And I gave him your name. Completely caught off guard. Here I am thrust into this wonderful opportunity. Again, talk to AT&T. AT&T eats it up and says, yes, go do it. So I'm spending weeks, sometimes a month, in Washington, D.C., in the White House. My area of research is higher education because that's what I was doing then as chair of the Kansas Board of Regents. So the area that I worked on was preparing research and documents about improving opportunity for low-income and middle-income students to get into higher ed and graduate. And so all of you that, Larry, all of you that have a Pell Grant, I want 10%. Eventually, the Pell Grant Act was approved from our research. Friends, I talked to you about Anthony. Anthony had a dream of a little sister and got 3. And I told you about my dream. I got to the White House, but I never ran for president. I'm a firm believer that the universe still gives us dreams, still gives us hope. Because what you must understand is that poor people see themselves far away from their poverty, far away from their situation. And we as educators need to stop taking dreams from little boys who want to be Shaquille O'Neal. Because what they're saying to you is, I want to be as far away as I can from my horrible condition, that I'll launch my dreams, my hopes on something that may be perceived by some people as being unattainable. I never told my friends that I had an interest in being president. Can you imagine what my friends would have said growing up in Wichita? Can anybody from Wichita ever aspire to working in the White House? Well, friends, long story short, I stand before you a transformed man for what K-State did for me. I do not take this lightly. I do not take my returning to you. I do not take giving you this presentation lightly. I came from nothing. I represented nothing. I had nothing. K-State gave me everything. Amy, I'll always cherish our friendship. I'll always cherish that you never turned your back and said, why didn't you remain in my camp? You've always been my friend. Dr. Bosco, you were my advisor when I was student body president. I will never forget your advice. I will never forget your support. I will never forget your unwavering commitment to me as a student leader. I did a crazy thing. I decided to pledge Delta Upsilon. Crazy thing. A group of white boys came up to me and asked me if I would come to their house for dinner. And I thought, how strange that these guys would ask me to come eat their chicken a la king. And I get there, and these boys are in khaki pants and navy blazers with penny loafers and the hair all parted to one side. And to me, they all looked alike. In the end, I accepted their offer to become their brother. But in the end, they became my brother. My wife passed 2005, and I'll never forget looking back in the church. My sons nudged me and said, Dad, because we were in a black church, Dad, who are those white guys back there? And I turned around, and 2 rows of my fraternity brothers were there to support me. And then one of my fraternity brothers said he wanted to make a commitment to my wife's scholarship fund. And he committed not $100, but $1 million to create the Edgerly Franklin Scholars. I don't know if you're getting this story. I don't know if you're quite with me. I had nothing. I was born with nothing. K-State transformed me. This place that sometimes we take for granted, this place. And so, friends, I say to you, there are many students like me who come here. I came with a 17 ACT. Some of you would say, I shouldn't have been here. Some of you would say, he's not prepared to be here. But a Caroline Pine, a Pat Bosco, a Chet Peters, a Dwayne Walker believed in me so much that they hooked themselves unknowingly to my dream to become somebody because they believed. And so, friends, today, students come with a whole assortment of issues. Some come with anxiety that we can't even begin to understand. Some come with issues of identity and purpose and who am I and where. Some of our students come from hell neighborhoods that you wouldn't even drive through. I work in the Baltimore area. 42% of my freshman class comes from Freddie Gray's neighborhood in Baltimore, the neighborhood that eventually burned because students were so angry at how the police responded. Young people are trying to leave their neighborhoods to try to become somebody. And friends, there's not a university a university that has so much promise like this place. There's not. But yet higher ed, we hold on to old traditions that began with white men around structure and around processes that are clearly outdated, I am going to close. There's an educator author named David Warlick who says for the first time we're preparing students for a future we cannot clearly describe. And yeah, he's right. We can't describe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. We don't know what skills students will need to work, to survive in the workplace. We don't even know what work looks like. We don't know the impact of unmanned cars. We don't know the extent to which Amazon will invade our homes and our buying practices. We don't know how much we'll fall in love with Alexa. But one thing we know, our students will leave here and work and live in a diverse culture. They will not go to work in all white, all black, all brown, all anything. They will go and work in diverse cultures with companies that will say, we're outdated. We're not making it right. Come transform our environment. But yet we teach in these outdated models. We're not interdisciplinary. We don't have conversations about how do we transform the academy to meet the needs that these students represent and just described. Friends, I'm proud of the Multicultural Center. I'm proud that we're going to get that building, but that's not the end of it. We must figure out how we create systems that allow people who have nothing, who come from nothing, who have dreams. We must figure out how we take those dreams and make them reality. We must do that. So I close, really, thank you. You had a collegiate op-ed piece recently that talked about, is it necessary? And I've really been thinking about that necessary word. Francis of Assisi said, start by doing what's necessary. Then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. I say to us today, we have to continue doing the necessary. We have to. We have to figure out how we transform this place so that people talk and we don't live and work in silos. We must figure out how we do this work that crisscrosses departments and crisscrosses colleges and brings people together so that we can get degrees done in 3 years and not have students coming here in debt, leaving here in more debt because we haven't figured out how to make higher education more accessible, more easy for the people who really need it. There's a quote I love, and I can't find who it says, who it's written by. A civilization is measured by how it treats its weakest members. Or the greatest of a nation can be judged by how it treats its weakest member. I want to transpose, I want to change it to say a great university is regarded great by how it treats these, how it treats you, and how it treats people who people say shouldn't be here. I take my seat, and I take my seat with the words of one man that I listen to over and over and over again. Some radicalized him, some scorn him, but he still speaks truth to me. If not now, then when? If not me, then who? Malcolm X speaks to us. We can't wait. We must push forward.
Now we know why some wanted Bernard to come back and speak to us. Bernard, thank you. You early said our work cannot stop, and then you said it at the end, and that's absolute truth. You discovered your voice here. Clearly, you haven't lost your voice. And that's important to many people. And I know you're being fulfilled in your new role at Emmitsburg, up in Emmitsburg at Mount St. Mary's. But when you're kind of done with that kind of fulfillment, would you please come back and work for Dr. Bosco and myself? I can guarantee we know how to spell your name right here. Okay, we got that. Just one logistics announcement. The Multicultural Center session following this will be at 3 in this room, not downstairs where I initially announced earlier. Thanks everybody for being in attendance. Looks like we got a good group, and I really thank you for being here. I think we all thank each other for being here. You know, last year we felt, at least I felt, and I think most people felt, a real sense of urgency to get on with our work around diversity and inclusion. We've made some progress, but I don't want anybody to lose that sense of urgency. If you heard a reason to treat this as an urgent problem, one to be solved right now, as quickly as we can. Our speakers, our student speakers, and thank you, by the way, for sharing all your experiences as well. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Bernard, thank you for sharing your story. But our work is not complete. So those who were here last year, let's remember that sense of urgency. We're going to make this place a better place, not just for us that are here for a while, but for future generations, and that's our hope. Let me go back to the White House of 1972 and the man that you worked for there, and have a quote here that will end this from former President Jimmy Carter. He said, and I paraphrase to some degree, but quote, "We are not a melting pot, but rather a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different hopes, different dreams, differences that come together in unity to make us all better. Let's continue this walk together." And so in the spirit of unity, I think we have on stage, they're supposed to be back there, music creates unity as well. So I think we have the pep band. There they are. Thank you, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remember, as President Myers indicated, we're going to have the presentation about the Multicultural Center here in this room. And if all of you would please go to the KS Unite website and complete the survey and let us know what you think about this year's KS Unite and anything that we can do better moving forward. Thank you so much.